In the quiet suburbs just outside Austin, Texas, lived Mark Reynolds, a man whose life was defined by hard work and quiet sacrifice. At 38, Mark was both father and mother to his 10-year-old daughter, Emily. Ever since his wife passed away 5 years earlier, the Reynolds household had been running on little more than love, determination, and Mark's rough, calloused hands. Mark worked long hours as a mechanic at a small auto shop, often returning home with grease on his clothes and fatigue in his bones. Yet no matter how hard the day had been, he always made time for Emily, helping her with homework at the kitchen table, cooking simple meals, or tucking her into bed with stories he made up just for her. Life wasn't easy, but Emily's smile made every sacrifice worth it. One sweltering Saturday afternoon, while Emily pedaled her bike along the cracked sidewalk, Mark leaned against their porch railing, sipping a glass of lukewarm water. That's when he noticed a group of children gathered beneath the towering oak tree in the yard across the street. The house behind them was enormous. Stone walls, high windows, and gates that had always seemed closed off from the neighborhood. Most people whispered about it, saying the owner was wealthy but odd, hardly ever seen in public. The kids looked heartbroken, staring at a pile of broken boards and crooked nails scattered around the tree's base. High up on the trunk, a few shaky planks clung desperately where they had once been nailed. Their dream of building a treehouse had clearly fallen apart. Emily slowed her bike and rode back to her dad. "Dad," she whispered, glancing across the street. They were trying to build a treehouse, but it fell apart. Her big brown eyes carried the same disappointment she saw on the other kids' faces. Mark followed her gaze and something stirred in him. He remembered being a boy himself, hammering scraps of wood with his father, dreaming of castles in the branches. Kids deserved a place to laugh, to imagine, to escape the world below. He couldn't ignore the tug at his heart. The following weekend, Mark gathered his old toolbox, some scrap lumber he had saved from jobs, and a few sturdy boards he could spare from his own shed. Walking across the street with Emily by his side, he approached the group of children. "Hey kids," he said with a gentle smile. "How about we build this the right way?" The children's eyes lit up, their disappointment melting into excitement. Emily beamed, already proud of her dad. Soon, the air was filled with the rhythmic sound of hammering, the smell of sawdust, and the happy chatter of kids watching their dream come to life. Mark cut boards with precision, nailed beams firmly, and explained each step patiently as if he were teaching an important lesson. Emily handed him nails like a trusted partner, while the other children cheered with every piece secured. Piece by piece, the treehouse began to rise, a sturdy fortress in the branches, strong enough to hold not only the kids' weight but also their hopes. What Mark didn't know was that behind the tall windows of the mansion, someone else was watching. A woman in her late 30s, elegant yet pale from years of seclusion, stood behind parted curtains. She hadn't opened her door to the world in a long time. She wasn't just wealthy. She was a billionaire recluse, hidden from the town for years. And yet, as she watched Mark build something beautiful out of nothing, not just for his daughter but for hers too, something inside her stirred. The man rebuilding her children's joy was about to change her life in ways she never imagined. By the time the treehouse was finished, it was more than just a structure of wood and nails. It was a fortress of joy, a safe haven suspended in the branches of the oak tree. The kids squealed with laughter as they climbed the ladder, their delighted voices echoing through the neighborhood. They played hide and seek inside its walls, leaned over the little porch railing, and declared it their castle in the sky. Mark stood back, wiping the sweat from his brow, a small smile tugging at his lips. His body ached from the work, but his heart felt lighter than it had in years. Watching Emily's face glow with happiness as she played alongside new friends was worth every drop of effort. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't the girl who only had her dad for company. She belonged. As twilight painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Mark began to gather his tools. That was when the heavy front door of the mansion across the street creaked open. Slowly, a woman stepped out. She was in her late 30s, elegant in a simple dress, her posture poised yet fragile. Her eyes, though strikingly beautiful, carried an unmistakable loneliness, as if she had spent too many years behind closed doors. The children immediately ran to her side, wrapping their small arms around her. She looked at Mark, her voice soft but steady. "You built this for them?" Mark shifted uneasily, brushing sawdust off his hands. They just needed a hand, he replied modestly. Kids should have a place to dream. She hesitated, as though searching for words she hadn't spoken in years. Finally, she extended her hand slightly. I'm Olivia Carter. Mark shook it politely, sensing instantly she was not an ordinary neighbor. There was a grace about her, a presence that spoke of a life far removed from his own. What he didn't know was that Olivia Carter was one of the wealthiest women in Texas, a billionaire widow who had retreated into her mansion after personal tragedy, choosing isolation over society. Over the weeks that followed, Olivia began inviting Mark and Emily for dinners. At first the gatherings were simple: homemade pasta, grilled chicken, laughter echoing across her once silent dining room. But as time passed, the connection deepened. Olivia, who had hidden herself from the world, found herself drawn to Mark's quiet strength. She admired how naturally he connected with her children, never treating them like burdens, but like treasures. Emily and Olivia's kids became inseparable, spending hours in the treehouse that had become the heart of the neighborhood. Mark, who had once felt invisible, was now the center of a family bigger than he'd ever imagined. One evening, as the children strung fairy lights along the treehouse porch and the glow illuminated their laughter, Olivia stood beside Mark. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "You've given them more than a treehouse. You've given us hope." Mark looked at her, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. He realized he hadn't just built a safe place for kids. He had unknowingly built a bridge into Olivia's guarded heart. For the first time in years, the billionaire recluse felt her walls crumble. And it all began with a struggling dad, a few tools and an act of kindness that changed all their lives forever.